I feel birth, death, marriage is destined, and these things can't be manipulated. I have surrendered my life completely. So, whenever it happens, I will accept it. I can tell if I'm being lied to or manipulated a little better than most. It's definitely an advantage for me. It's not often a thriller keeps me wound up as well as Headhunters did. I knew I was being manipulated and didn't care. It was a pleasure to see how well it was being done. You cannot be driven by the polls. The polls change all the time. They're easily manipulated by whoever wants to ask those poll questions. They go up, they go down. Because the sad fact is that the Enron Corporation and others manipulated with unfortunately great effect the energy market in the West Coast starting in 2000. You know, I had never heard of the Tulsa riots, and I think something like 42% of Americans hadn't, until Watchmen, on HBO. And that's just crazy. I really saw how history is manipulated. Making movies, you're like an independent contractor. You come in, you have a specific job, and a lot of what you do is completely manipulated, which is good and bad. No support of one star or one director or one producer can make any individual actor a star. You have to connect with the audience have to like you. That is something that cannot be manipulated or fought for or tried for. Either they like you, or they don't. Music is like nuclear plants. In a way, it's true. Music is totally artificial. Still using some material from nature. A piano is assembled with wood and iron. Nuclear power uses material from nature, but it's been manipulated by humans, and it produces something unnatural. We live in a digital world where all is available at the touch of a screen. Money has been simplified, changed subtly over time from tangible bills to numbers in cyberspace. Cash is no longer in a cloth bag, it's numbers on a screen. Numbers that can be manipulated and modified. If you run out of numbers, you can just buy some more, right? At some stage in the process, most mainstream pop records are being manipulated and possibly completely rebuilt on a computer, with a visual program. Many people out there don't have a choice in choosing their friends and the people they're being manipulated by. Thank God, I have that choice. I can use my judgment and choose. Cultists do not want to admit they have been manipulated by charisma. Nigerian money scheme victims do not want to accept that they had been swindled. To accept those realities is to accept their own faults. Denial of our own weaknesses is something we all suffer from time to time. It's a political and manipulative industry. Actors vie for the same roles, movies are snatched away. Have I ever been manipulated? Yes. But I haven't manipulated anyone because if you think from the heart, you cannot be calculative. I have spent nights crying. It's so important for people to pay attention to history and learn from it, because it's the only thing we've got that's going to help us figure out where we are going. Especially the way things are manipulated in the press today. You have to sort through so much stuff to figure out what is real and what is not. It gets harder every day. Historically, Macbeth is one of the greatest kings Scotland ever had. He was on the throne for 19 years. And he simply has this dreadful reputation because Shakespeare manipulated history for the benefit of James I, who was paying him to write the play to blacken Macbeth's name. I could talk for ages about how women are amazing, but essentially we shouldn't be manipulated by the media's expectations of our bodies. I'd recommend every woman to read Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's about being in touch with your more wild, free, and powerful side. On Facebook, your past comes into your present when someone from your second grade class suddenly pops up to send you a message, and your future is being manipulated by what Facebook knows to put in front of you next. The principle of tolerance and respect for freedom promoted by the reforms of the Second Vatican Council are today being manipulated and erroneously taken too far. Thanks to capitalism, the importance placed on beauty has never been so manipulated. We are the guinea pigs force-fed ads that tell us how pathetic we are, that we will never be loved, happy or valuable unless we have the body, the face, the hair, even the personality that will apparently be ours, if only we buy their products. If one is free at heart, no man-made chains can bind one to servitude, but if one's mind is so manipulated and controlled by the oppressor, then there will be nothing the oppressed can do to scare his powerful masters. The cinema began with a passionate, physical relationship between celluloid and the artists and craftsmen and technicians who handled it, manipulated it, and came to know it the way a lover comes to know every inch of the body of the beloved. No matter where the cinema goes, we cannot afford to lose sight of its beginnings. Belief is such a powerful thing, but because it is, it can also be very destructive and it's very easily manipulated. Language, philosophy, and science are interwoven into the design of words, which are manipulated to create surprising illusions. Imagination tends to be truly useful if accompanied by the power of mental control, if the worlds in one's head can be purposefully manipulated and distinguished from the real one outside it. The showbiz world has to be manipulated to make it more interesting because most people's lives are boring. When it comes to controlling human beings, there is no better instrument than lies. Because you see, humans live by beliefs. And beliefs can be manipulated. The power to manipulate beliefs is the only thing that counts. Some people ask why people would go into a dark room to be scared. I say they are already scared, and they need to have that fear manipulated and massaged. I think of horror movies as the disturbed dreams of a society. The art of reading between the lines is as old as manipulated information. It is the greatest scam in history. I am amazed, appalled, and highly offended by it. Global warming. It is a scam. Some dastardly scientists with environmental and political motives manipulated long-term scientific data to create an illusion of rapid global warming. It is easier to treat people as objects to be manipulated if you have never learned any other way to see them. For me as an American, the most painful aspect of this is that I believe that administration has taken the events of 9/11 and has manipulated the grief of the country, and I think that's reprehensible. I may be biting off more than I can chew, but with The Simpsons and with Futurama, what I'm trying to do in the guise of light entertainment, if this is possible, is nudge people, jostle them a little, wake them up to some of the ways in which we're being manipulated and exploited. They had some really cool rigged cars and things that were different that they would tow behind the camera car that were actually on these trailers that manipulated side to side and stuff like they were getting hit, and actually put the actor right in the middle of the chase. I am a Justin Bieber fan, but I am also so fascinated by how weird pop music can be and how manipulated it can be, so I enjoy thinking about that side of it too. I feel bad for him. I could never imagine growing up that way. One of the things that can be helpful in terms of an explanation is to look at the ways in which cults are similar to abusive relationships. Nobody seeks out an abusive partner, but so many people stay in these relationships longer than they should. They make excuses, they ignore red flags, and they allow themselves to be emotionally manipulated. Mainly, I hope to inspire honesty. We live in a space where so much can be manipulated, and so much is expected to be manipulated, curated, contrived, edited. I think that's a real detriment to self-expression and happiness in a lot of ways. In my mind, honesty and vulnerability is the way forward. Unfortunately, there is a tendency among political elites to distrust the opinions of ordinary people. They are perceived to base their views on dark instincts and unjustified fears, rather than on rational choices. European voters, however, are highly educated, and it is ridiculous to suppose they can be easily fooled or manipulated. I always thought that putting tons of reverb on my voice was kind of the equivalent of airbrushing, and I wanted other girls and women to hear a real female voice that wasn't completely manipulated. Pictures get manipulated, pictures get dropped into accounts. We've asked an internet security firm and a law firm to take a hard look at this to come up with a conclusion about what happened and to make sure it doesn't happen again. No single solution or actor can deal with the complex and interrelated challenges to electoral integrity arising from manipulated data, hate speech, and fake news. These phenomena are not new, they have been part of electoral cycles since the advent of democracy. With stand-up, there's a little bit of an exaggerated reality because things have to be manipulated to create comedy, to create jokes. Sometimes negative news does come out, but it is often exaggerated and manipulated to spread scandal. Journalists sometimes risk becoming ill from coprophilia and thus fomenting coprophagia, which is a sin that taints all men and women, that is, the tendency to focus on the negative rather than the positive aspects. I just hope Americans come to understand that food isn't something to be manipulated by our teeth and shoved down our gullet, that it's our spiritual and physical nourishment and important to our well-being as a nation. I love being manipulated by what I see. I love weepies and romantic comedies where you're reaching for the Kleenex at the right moment. Sooner or later we've all got to confront the reality that we have got to come to understand who we are and what we're doing, and the extent to which we are guided or manipulated by forces that are beyond our control. It's really important to remember that most people in the public eye are human for a start, and a lot of things that you read in the media get slightly misconstrued and manipulated. The work which is manipulated looks a little boring to me. I think life is pretty strange anyway. It is woo, woo, woo. The fundamental aspect of video is not the image, even though you can stand in amazement at what can be done electronically, how images can be manipulated, and the really extraordinary creative possibilities. For me, the essential basis of video is the movement, something that exists at the moment and changes in the next moment. Fear makes us do things we would otherwise never agree to do, and people can be emotionally manipulated into believing something during times of great stress and tragedy. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.